Welcome back. Hope you're all doing well. Simon Elias from Go Permissionless. Hope everyone is doing fabulous with the strange sounds of Bitcoin and what's been happening out there. Just to let everybody know, I've been on annual leave, so forgive me for not posting regularly as usual, but I'm back. I'm fighting fit. I took 2 weeks out. I was very fortunate to spend some great time in one of our friends' villa in Ibiza, which was just phenomenal. Thanks to those guys if you're watching. But also I ended up taking some time out and we did a work retreat for one of my businesses in Sarajevo, which was just fantastic, just to kind of say thanks to the team for the hard work. So if you guys are watching, massive shout to you and thanks for your hospitality. It was amazing. But without further ado, a lot's been happening since I've been away just for those 3 weeks. Did a couple of videos, like I said, when I was in Ibiza. Back now looking at the markets, just seeing really what's happening within the world. Obviously, we've got a lot of war going on at the moment. We've got Iran kicking off with Israel. We've got Ukraine kicking off, obviously with Russia taking over a certain region. It's all shit hitting the fan. So yeah, crazy times ahead of us. But what still is resilient out there? Is it property? Is it stocks and shares? Or is it Bitcoin? In my humble opinion, it's Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been surviving the ultimate ride of everything out there. So something I wanted to quickly share out there that I saw with one of our friends, Raoul Paul, and it's a video that is just phenomenal and it's really good. So watch this.
I worry that over the next 6 years, the economic system starts changing. So economies grow fast, but it doesn't grow fast for us. Markets become more irrational over time. After about 2030, I don't know what financial markets are. I don't know what a lot of this means anymore, because even companies that make hardware, the AI can design it, you can 3D print it, the robots can make it as well. So it becomes very difficult to understand what holds value in a company. How do companies hold value when they can be disrupted? This whole SaaS software revolution becomes infinitely copyable in seconds. So in which case, what is venture capital? So I think we've got 6 years to invest as much as we can, whether it's your brain power or your capital, and both if you can.
Amazing stuff with Raoul Paul. We're going to be talking about that on the show, but we're also going to be talking about some other things as well. What's happening with the interest rates in the UK. We're also going to be chatting a little bit about the wars and what's going on, and really looking at the price of Bitcoin and what's been happening with Bitcoin overall. So stick by, watch to the end. Let's do it. A lot has been happening in the markets. It's just bizarre. Like everybody is kicking and screaming, looking at the S&P 500, looking at what's happening with stocks and shares generally. There's a lot of stuff happening out there. I read an article the other day about TGI Fridays majorly having a suffering within the market with potential closures. They could be going into administration. Just goes to show, people are cutting back on spend. I wasn't a big fan of TGI Fridays. I was when I was a child, and the milkshakes were fantastic. But look, everything comes to an end, right? Things are changing, styles and trends are changing within restaurants. I think people just aren't going out to eat that much anymore. So it's just interesting. People are now looking at other styles of food, things like Five Guys, Shake Shack, all these types of burger places. They're kind of disrupting. And I think this is the key thing I wanted to get across. And what Raoul Paul said on the opener there is people are disrupting left, right, and center. I saw a recent YouTube clip as well with somebody, I forgot who the name was now, but he was a celebrity. It'll come to me in a minute. But basically they were talking about how everything is just being disrupted in this new generation. So we're growing up now in this period where SaaS, software as a service solutions, can be recreated by AI. Yeah, so have a little think about that. Whereas before you get your VC money, you're a company, you're setting up the new Facebook, you'd go out to a venture capitalist, you'd raise the money, and you get a few raises to get the business moving, and you take it into production. You get your team built, you get your tech team, your product team, et cetera, et cetera. What we're now seeing is, and what Raoul's talking about potentially within a 6-year time frame, is AI taking that over, meaning AI can set up companies. AI can go and build software solutions extremely quickly. So you could essentially go to the market with a new product extremely quickly. So things are rapidly changing. Things are moving at such a fast pace that you've just got to keep up with it, right? And I say to anybody, if you're young, you're middle-aged, or even if you're older, disruption is here to stay, right? So have a little think about that. We're not going to be moving in the normal dimensions as we previously have in previous years, right? We're moving in a cycle now where AI is taking over. AI is going to be really, really pushing at such a fast pace that it's going to be creating companies, right? So when you look at that, everything's going to change. Eating, drinking, I'm even seeing in London at the moment where I live, people aren't going out as much. My culture when I grew up, it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the pub. It's kind of non-existent now. The younger generation, they don't want to go out and drink as much as we did, if at all. They want to be in the gym, they want to be having protein shakes, etc., etc. So it's just good to learn about what's happening out there. And, Raoul Paul said it really, really crystal clear in what is happening there. But anyway, let's look at the markets at the moment and see what's kind of going on out there. Things have been really, really rattling around, to say the least. But let's look at the price shares of crypto so far. I always like to cover the last 7 days. I feel like I've missed everyone on this. I've missed the markets. I've been closely watching it, but it's just been, having time to sort of take a bit of holiday, basically. So yeah, Bitcoin last 7 days has been seriously rocky, but you know what? It's resilient. We've had a lot of things going on. We spoke about the German market where the German government liquidized loads of money from illicit assets. And Bitcoin is still resilient. I mean, look, we've gone up 3.75% today. We're still running in pounds at 47,000. But if you look at the last, look at the last year, this is what I was looking at earlier on. It's really, really interesting, right? Look, we've still got that beautiful rise. We've got a few shakedowns, 10, 15, 20%, which is normal. Anyone who's new to crypto, do not panic. This is a part of the process. We all know that, especially if you've been in for a long while as well. So it's just interesting. I don't know what's happening. The conviction is still there with many people. And I think even more so with Bitcoin now, people are just going crazy, right? You've got all the Morgan Stanley salespeople, I think 15,000 salespeople working at Morgan Stanley, heavily pushing the spot ETF, right? They're hungry. Wall Street's woken up. They've come to the party. We know that. Morgan Stanley, Jamie Dimon, who was against it, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, against Bitcoin, is now waking up his sales guys. They all want a piece of Bitcoin. And it comes back to scarcity. You look at property, unless you've got property in a beachfront location, or it's in Miami Beach, as Michael Saylor probably, you hear shouting about all the time. Unless it's prime real estate, it's really difficult to make very good yield on property. So it's interesting. Things are moving. I think the whole perception of Bitcoin is changing. You've got the mainstream investors coming in as usual. Liquidity is piling up, which is great for everybody. Ethereum has been very, very similar. If you look at that graph there, last 7 days, I'm not really into Ethereum anymore. I'm more Solana, which I always shout about. And if we look at Solana's had a bit of a fall actually, but still, my conviction for Solana is actually really, really high. I think the protocol is a lot more, I was going to say resilient. It's probably the wrong word to use. I think it's a lot more, the outcome of what Solana can provide for the end customer is a lot better, newest technology than Ethereum. So that's why I like Solana. And I think it's got a lot to offer. So, I keep predicting, I keep thinking it's going to be a 3x on Solana. So let's keep our fingers crossed on that. Whoever's kind of investing on Solana, let's see what happens. Interesting to see what's happening. I mentioned earlier on the opener about the wars around the world. This all causes friction, right, for the markets. It causes friction on stocks and share market for companies performing. And what doesn't get affected necessarily so much by the war, you guessed it, is Bitcoin. You haven't got a company running Bitcoin, right? You haven't got a government running Bitcoin. And you don't have a single entity running Bitcoin. If you look at the companies out there, and you've got a CEO, for example, we spoke about it earlier on, Jamie Dimon from Morgan Stanley. And if things aren't performing to the best ability within that company, bank, or organization or institution, things can get rattled by global frictions such as wars. And if you look at what's happening, the second Russian region declares a regional state of emergency. So, we've looked at what's happening out there. And it looks like Ukraine are coming after to Russia, obviously. They're making a fight back. And this all has implications on the markets in a really big way. Other news I've looked at as well, it's really interesting. For those in the UK, it's certainly going to happen in the US, and it's certainly going to happen in the UK. So if you're a property investor, which I am, if you guys are property investors, the show's around that. It's about property investors, entrepreneurs, educating you guys about Bitcoin and bringing news to you every day. So it says here, fall in service inflation, very encouraging for interest rate cuts. The fall in service inflation is very encouraging for the Bank of England, BOE, and could signal, and I think it's very, very strong to stand by this conviction, signal another interest rate cut next month, a financial expert said. But I think, we're on that, catapult to kind of move forward. I think things are looking good. I mentioned about TGI Fridays earlier on. I think things aren't looking good for these guys. And I certainly think things are going to be changing in the market. People's taste buds are changing. This has a repercussion on what people are spending on in the markets. And for me, certainly, I've cut back spending in stuff I don't necessarily need. I don't know about you guys. Let me know in the comments below. Are you cutting back spending in 2024? What's your view? It just seems to be people's perceptions are changing. I think you've got a rocky ride happening this year. And when there's a rocky ride and markets are destabilized, people tend to pull their belts in. This is interesting, right? I was looking at this the other day and I just kind of thought to myself, I've got to get this out there to the viewers and look at what's happening with, it says here, my browser has lost connection. Try restarting your browser. Let me just pause the video. Back. Rock and roll. Here we go. Let's share this screen. So yeah, Bitcoin halving process, which takes you through all of the Bitcoin halving cycles since day one, right? I wanted to share this. You may have seen it, you may have not. Anyone who comes to me and says, yeah, I'm not really too sure about Bitcoin. I invest in real estate, I invest in stocks and shares. Until you actually study the halving processes between the halvings and you see the beautiful graph that it creates, it gives you that conviction, right, about Bitcoin. It educates you to say, look, because there's so many people online that I read in forums, like, oh my God, Bitcoin, what's happening with it? We're going through a really bad cycle and things are looking bad. Always, and I stand by this, post-halving, which was in April this year, it's not until the end of the year, stroke 2025, that you really start to see those rises, okay? So now is a better time than ever still to invest in Bitcoin. For me, every day is a good time to invest in Bitcoin, but we still look for those dips in the market, right? But we had some dips recently and I hope people took advantage of that. So if you look at this, this is, I can't really move my browser for some reason. Oh, there you go. So yeah, 2009 all the way up to 2024 now, where we've got our post-halving in April here. And you can see this beautiful graph and what's actually happening, within the halving process and the post-halving process. So if you look at the last halving process here, which happened just after 2020, all the way up to where we are now, you've got a stabilized kind of movement in the price. But we started here, if you look at this, on the original halving, which was in 2020, and we started it around, I think it was around 9,000, yeah, 9,000, and we ended up here on 69,000. You go back to the last halving prior to that, 2016, we started on 662 and we ended up on 9,000. You go back here, we ended on the second halving at 12 and we ended up on 581, right? So when you look at that, it just paints the picture of of how well Bitcoin is doing. And if you look at the 1 year graph basically on Bitcoin, and you look at really how much it's risen, you can just share this screen. This is the last year. it's fantastic to see these, right? It paints the picture on where the market's at, how Bitcoin's performing. You know, for me, Bitcoin is just beautiful. We've got a 21 million supply that's never going to go. And things are just looking great. So it's just a really, really, really good time to be looking at this and how things are happening. You know, we're entering sort of end of the summer months on a global level here. People are going to start coming back from holiday. And overall, I think it's just, you know, it's a good time to be in Bitcoin. So yeah, you know, inflation's coming down in the UK, certainly, and I think it is in the US. Interest rates are going to be coming down, which is great. That's going to stimulate the market for real estate. People are going to start buying more real estate. But I'm not buying more real estate. I'm pausing any more real estate purchases. And you know why? I'm just putting it all into Bitcoin, you know, and I've converted to the Bitcoin Maxi now. It's all about what is your return and what's your stomach and appetite for your investment on the Bitcoin versus real estate versus stocks and shares. So I hope that was useful. It was really good hanging out with you guys. Keep in touch, leave your comments below. Please like, share, and comment along the way throughout this video. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'll be back next week. I'll be back this week. I'm getting mixed up with the days of the week for further news and insights into where we are in the markets. But for now, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.